wonder if this is how the ghost trope came about. If somebody just didn't put the neckline in their shift yet and put it on and just jumped out at their mother, was like, whoo! Hey y'all, Jackie here, and today I'm going to make 2 shifts from 2 different time periods from a single cut of fabric. No sign of her yet, but we better keep a close eye. She's been acting weird since we got back from the Renaissance Festival. I don't know, I believe that she's thinking about deviating from the plan and we can't let her get into any bad habits.
Look out, here she comes.
Stop right there! Hey, turn around! What do you have in your hands? Drop it. Drop the linen. Drop it now. You're not supposed to be working on new projects right now, Jackie. You're supposed to be working on your UFO pile. I know, but how do you expect to get through it all if you keep adding to it? It's the beginning of July. Halloween is only a couple of months away. If I don't start now, I'm never going to be finished. That's 3 months from now. 3 months that you could be working on your to-do list. I don't have to listen to you. You're not my boss. You're gonna regret this. Trust me. Okay. I know what you're thinking. I promised I wasn't going to start anything new until I finished my UFO pile. But I have 2 legitimate reasons why I'm taking this detour. 1, Halloween does not wait for my UFO projects to be done. It's at the end of October. No negotiation. 2, this project is hand sewn, so it's being done in conjunction with my machine sewn UFO projects. In theory. Smock, shift, chemise, known by many different names from many different places, this was the base undergarment for hundreds of years. This basic, loosely fitted garment is essential to creating a good historical look. It keeps your body dry and comfortable and means you don't have to put that beaded gown in the washing machine because it smells bad. My Halloween costume, which I'll talk about in detail in a later video, is going to be inspired by the early 15th century. So I knew I needed to make a shift or smock to wear beneath it. When I was planning out this undergarment from the medieval tailor's assistant, I read an interesting fact. It's more economical to make 2 shifts from 1 cut of standard width fabric than it is to make 1. Why? In earlier times, fabric was woven to much smaller width than it is now. The modern day standard is 45 or 60 inches, and we're seeing about half that or smaller in earlier textiles. Fabric was also very, very expensive. These garments were created in such a way as to waste as little fabric as possible. Something I wish modern day designs would do, if I'm honest. I also have a plan for when I do finish my UFO pile that will involve, let's say, the 1770s and platform shoes. And because I am so very INTJ and plan 6 months ahead of time for everything, I started digging down the wonderful world of 18th century shifts. Guess what? Same thing. More economical to make 2 than 1. It makes perfect sense to me. Let's make both of them at once. A couple of things to note. I am not a dress historian. I'm a costumer. I'm shooting to be historically adequate here, but is it perfect? Probably not. I've never made one of these before. Even though I've been hand sewing since my brownie days, I've never hand stitched an entire garment somehow. Hopefully you can watch this and learn from my mistakes, because guys, there are many. I'm using Burnley and Trowbridge's amazing shift sew along as my base for both of these garments, supplemented by the medieval tailor's assistant to modify the pattern for the medieval smock. I've linked both of these in the description below and to the sew along in the card above my head. Both of them are awesome resources. You should definitely check them out. And this isn't sponsored, I'm just an enthusiast. The first thing I needed to do was take my measurements. Apart from the standard bust and waist measurements, I needed a few others. The length of my shoulder to my knee, the width of my shoulder point to shoulder point, the largest part of my bicep, and then the length of my shoulder to my elbow for the chemise sleeve, and my shoulder to about my knuckle for the medieval smock. From there, I made a scale drawing of all of my pieces and measured to get the amount of fabric I needed. For this project, I'm using a lightweight shift linen that I also got from Burnley and Trowbridge. It is so nice. Since I was doing 2 shifts, I decided to then cut out all of the pieces individually and Tetris them out on another sheet of paper that was scaled to the size of my fabric so I could make sure to get the most conservative cut. This is my original layout for my 2 shifts. Now what you're looking at right here, and unfortunately I can't get the whole thing in frame, is the sleeve portion. I'll show you here. I'll show you the body. Okay, so all of these notches represent an inch. This is going to be 43 inches. Okay, so here's the sleeve part, and I'll kind of walk you through what I've got here so far. I have 2 sleeves here that are approximately 11 inches long and 16 inches wide, 1, 2, for my late 1770s shift. Then I have the 2 gussets for under the arms. Then I have over here, these are the arm side reinforcements, and the 2 shoulder reinforcements are here. So these arm side reinforcements go all the way down this way. That is for the 1770s shift. Then if we move down here, these are the sleeves for my medieval smock. This one is, I believe it's 25 by 16. So these sleeves are actually going in a different direction than these sleeves, just because I was trying to use them, be as economical as possible. This is going to be a long sleeve smock, and the shift or chemise is going to be just to the elbow. So that's why the sleeves look so different. And then there's 2 gussets over here, and those are the underarm gussets for the medieval smock. And then the gussets, or the gores I should say, for both of my shifts are going to be cut out of the body. Mistake number 1. Okay guys, I have really screwed up. When I was doing all of my diagrams, I had this great plan and I laid it all out and it was super perfect. When I did the math to figure out how much I needed less than Burnley and Trowbridge had suggested, and I was like, oh, that's odd. But I spent all this time doing this math and it's gotta be right. I ended up ordering an extra half a yard anyway because I didn't feel right about it. I got 3 yards of fabric, and after noodling over this for several days, I have come to the realization that I forgot to factor in the fact that I have to double up the fabric. Like, I have to fold it so that I can get a full body out of one piece without cutting. So basically what I did was I calculated everything in. So here's my body, thinking that I only needed 1 of these instead of 2. And then I laid out all of my sleeves and it was super perfect, but I did all my counting with only 1 side of the body. So I'm essentially 42 inches short, but I have not lost hope, because when I did all my factoring, I had like a crap ton of extra. So I have very painstakingly cut out all of my pieces, and hopefully, I don't know, the fan might blow everything around, but I'm gonna try and Tetris this all together and see if I can get it on this square of fabric, because this is the amount of fabric I have left over after using both sides of the fabric for the body. So it's basically a 58 by 24 inch strip. I'm either gonna have to do the 1770s sleeve or the medieval sleeve, but not both. I will probably do the medieval sleeve first. There goes my whole brilliant plan. This just goes to show you that you should triple check all of your math. Even if it feels right, check it again before you order. And if your gut is telling you that something is wrong, it's probably wrong. I should have listened to my gut. I'm gonna get cut what I can get cut and go from there. At least I measured before I cut. After an agonizing half an hour pulling strings, I have here one full body piece. It is folded in half lengthwise. Okay, so you can see. I cut just enough fabric for the body, which for me is 2 times 42 inches. So what is that? 84 inches, right? And folded it in half. And then I also cut it down the center since we are making 2 out of the 1 cut of fabric. So this is a 29-inch wide and 84-inch long strip of linen. And at the top where the fold is, I have marked with my tailor's chalk the center. What I'm going to do now is cut out the gores from the top of this, as the diagram showed us. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my shoulder to shoulder measurement, which is 17.5 inches, and going from the center, I'm going to have that and do that measurement from the center. So that's 8.5, 8 3/4 of an inch on either side. Half of 42 is 21, so we're gonna go down 21 inches and mark. So now I'm gonna do that to the other one, and then we'll cut both of them. And then I cut out the gores. Make sure you snip the top where they're connected. Okay friends, I have finished cutting the rest of my bits. I did not film this for 2 reasons. One, I was watching a live streaming concert and didn't want to deal with the copyright issues. And 2, it involved me pulling a lot of threads and cussing a lot, which I don't think YouTube would appreciate too much. So I'll show you what I've got. I've got 2 strips here that are 1.5 inches wide by I think 26 inches long. These are the reinforcement strips for my 1770s arm size. There are also 2 strips that are 1.5 inches by 6 inches. These are reinforcement strips for my 1770s shoulder seams. These look a little bit yellow, but that's because I use the yellow tailor's chalk. That'll come off. So I got those cut. I also got all my gussets cut. So there are 4 gussets here, 2 for the medieval smock and 2 for the 1770s chemise. So I'm going to put 2 of these aside for the chemise and 2 of these over here onto the other side. And then I also got both of my medieval smock sleeves cut out of the fabric. So here, I don't think I can get this in frame, but these are, I believe they are 17 inches wide by 24 inches long, I think 24 or 25, I can't remember. But they are going to be full sleeves. And so the only thing I'm missing from my terrible math calculations are the arms for my 1770 chemise. So this is 1 sleeve, okay? It's gonna go around like this. Here's my arm, right? It's gonna go around like this. So this gets sewn here. And we're gonna leave a scant 1/4 of an inch here to fell down later. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this hand stitched. I'm gonna do both of these and I will check back after I'm done. Line up the corner of the gusset with the edge of the sleeve at the top. Make sure you leave a scant seam allowance on the one side to fell over the stitching and encase the seams. Then, backstitch on the back side of the fabric. Flip the seam open and fell over the raw edge. Fold over the sleeve and pin it from the wrist upward, making sure again to leave a scant seam allowance for felling. I got a little turn around here and should have folded the sleeve in the other direction so the felling would go in the same direction as the gusset's felling. It's not that big of a deal, but I thought I'd mention that you should try to pay attention to whether you're pinning to the outside or the inside of the fabric. Pin all the way up to the gusset. Okay, here's the trick. All right, so here's the opening of the sleeve, right? This is the shoulder. The gusset needs to fit so that there is a diamond in the armpit, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull it up, make like a triangle, right? And pin it like this. And I wanna make sure that I'm following the right line so that this is gonna fold over this way. And it might not fit exactly, and that's okay. Apparently that's normal. I'm gonna try and get it as close as I can. I really had to noodle over this. I had a hard time trying to figure it out, and I was just overthinking it. Just, the point of the gusset is that it makes the armhole bigger, or the arm side, so, you can get your arm in it, since there's no stretch to it. So just remember, you want to make this hole bigger, not smaller. If you get confused, just look for the diamond. And so when I stitched just the gusset last night, I stitched it wrong. You want to stitch from the other side of the flap. So I'm going to back stitch this way, and then I can fold it over on the correct side this way. Okay? It's a learning process. Learning with me here. But you know what? I can make this mistake so you don't have to. This process is exactly the same for both the smock and the chemise, although I only filmed it for the smock because I still hadn't bought my extra fabric at this point. Fold a small amount up once and then a second time to encase the seams, and then hem stitch it closed. I'm doing about 1/8 of an inch here. I have sleeves! There. Now for the rest of the smock. Now to pin the gores to the body. Lay the body out. You have 4 gores. The straight side of each gore is going to be pinned to the straight side of each of the bodies. Again, make sure you're giving yourself a little seam allowance for felling. Do this for each side on both of your shifts. That's a total of 8 gores. The angled sides of the gores will then be pinned and sewn to its mate to make up the side seam of the shift, but that comes later. It was at about this point that I got the rest of my linen for the 1770 sleeves. I managed to get just a piece of the linen I'm using for my shift from Burnley and Trowbridge. It was a 12-inch piece that they had, and I'm really excited that I didn't have to buy a whole half a yard of this. So since I didn't film it before, I'm going to show you a little bit of how you pull threads. Maybe I'm doing it wrong, but this is really a pain in the butt. My threads keep breaking as I'm pulling, as you're about to see. So first, I'm going to pull long ways. And as you can see, I've serged this. I know that it's not period per se, but you know what? Neither are washing machines. And this guy has got to go in the washing machine, and I wasn't about to send a sheet of linen in there without the edges being serged first, because they would come out this big. So what I'm going to do is along this top here, I am just going to make a snip. And I'm going to open it up a little and grab a single thread from the middle of that snip. And then I'm just going to pull gently. See, it breaks. Like, well, I I got one going this end, so we might as well start with that side. So I need two 11 by 16. Let's do 11 by 17. Actually, no, let's do 11 by 16. Okay, 16. And there's 16. Okay, so then we get to pull 2 more threads. We need to measure down 11 inches, which is here. I will point out though that this is not a straight cut. As you can see, there is a benefit to this process. Otherwise, I definitely wouldn't be wasting my time. That doesn't mean I'm not going to complain about it as it's happening, because I like to complain. Makes me feel better about my life. See? Wasn't straight. All right, that's it. That's my 2 sleeves done for my 1770s chemise. I am going to seam these guys up. With the chemise sleeves sewn, it was time to pin the sleeves to the bodies. I finger pressed each sleeve in half to get a crease at the center, then marked the center of the gusset with a pin. Then I matched the center crease with the center crease of the body and pinned the sleeve down from there, which I did completely out of frame. Is anyone surprised? From here, I began pinning the side seams, starting with the bottom of the bodies where the 2 bias cut edges of the gores meet, which I forgot to film. So basically, the side seam and the shoulder seam of each shift are being sewn as one. So it starts at the bottom and then goes up, makes a loop, and then goes back down like the letter P. Now up to here, the construction for both shifts has been identical. The shift sew along suggests using reinforcements for the arm size, which is this part, as well as the shoulders. Since that particular sew along is for an 18th century shift, I decided to try that process for the chemise and try doing the simpler technique from the medieval tailor's assistant for the smock. That means that for the smock, I was going to fell the entire arm seam. For the chemise, I was only going to fell the side portion. The arm side, which is, as I said, the brown part of the P, would be covered by the reinforcement strip, which means I didn't have to offset that part when I sewed it on. Here's some gratuitous hand stitching footage. Notice that I'm doing the back stitching on the back, not on the front where the cut edge is. Okay, so I figured you guys were probably tired of staring at my green coffee table while I do this, so I'm going to try and film this here. I'm sorry if I cut my head off. I have just finished seaming up the sides of the smock, and I don't love it. I haven't felled anything yet because I wanted to show you what a sloppy job I did. I have way too much selvage at the top here. It was really quite difficult to offset the sleeve holes. I have already started pinning the sleeves in for the chemise, and with the edges meeting is already cleaner than this. So I think in the future probably the best way to go is going to be the method of the 1770s chemise and the arm side reinforcements. However, I have committed to this, so this is what I'm going to do. So basically now I'm going to turn everything over and fell the insides, and then I think All I have left to do is hem the bottom and then deal with the neckline. For the chemise, I had to add the reinforcement strips. First, the ones for the shoulders. Turn up the long edges of the strips by a little bit on each side, then fold it in half. Match the center crease with the center crease of the body on the outside of the garment, not the inside. Then pin, making sure the outer edges match. Here are my 2 reinforcement strips for my arm size, okay? So instead of felling these down like I did on the smock, we're going to use these strips to cover the raw edges. So I have my chemise here. It is inside out, and I've pulled the sleeves out because what we're going to do is we're going to finger press the raw edges toward the body of the chemise. Take these strips and we're going to fold a little bit of each side in, just a little. Again, we're just going to finger press this. We don't need to get the iron out for this part. Okay, so we've got both of our reinforcement strips here. They are folded inward. And now what we're going to do is pin them onto the arm side of our chemise. Okay, so here is the center, and then I'm going to take this center and match it to this center. Tuck it under. Okay, and then I'm just going to pin this folded edge kind of close to my stitch line. Okay, so here's the base of the gusset. And honestly, I think I cut my strip just a little bit too short. It really should extend down a little bit further. Here's the end of the gusset right here. But that's okay. And the good thing is that this edge at least is a selvage, so that's the shorter one, so I'm not quite as concerned. Now they recommend you baste this before you sew it, and I can see how that would be advantageous. I, however, am a little short on time, so I'm just going to deal with the pins. All right, so that's done. I'm going to go and hem stitch this down, and then we will be ready to do the neckline. Alrighty, I have 2 shifts assembled. Here is the medieval smock, and here is the 1770s chemise. So as of right now, they're really not too much different. The only difference is obviously this one's got the reinforcement strips on the top and it has shorter sleeves. And this one doesn't have any reinforcement strips and it's got long sleeves. So here is where everything is going to get a little bit different because we are going to put 2 different necklines into these things, into the shifts are both going to have different necklines. The medieval smock is going to have a nice scooped neckline, and I've decided to do a square neckline on the 1770s because my shoulders slope really bad. I have tiny, really narrow shoulders, and I think that'll help keep it up. So yeah, all that's left to do is try it on. All right, so, I mean, I think it fits. This feels really weird. Like, woo! I wonder if this is how the ghost trope came about. If somebody just didn't put the neckline in their shift yet and put it on and just jumped out at their mother was like, woo! I feel like dancing. Okay, That's enough silliness for now. Let's get to work. We are going to cut a slit in this so that I can get my head through it. Okay, so this is the medieval smock, and I have cut out a little hole for my head, and now I'm trying to figure out where I want to cut for my neckline. I do kind of wish that I had the overgarment so that I could just put that on and figure out from there, but since that's going to be the last thing I do for this Halloween project because it has to be fitted, we are just going to wing it, and I'm thinking it's better if it is too high up because I can always take some away, whereas if I cut it too low, then it might just fall off of me and be a complete pain. So I am going to kind of cut it on the conservative side. I'm thinking here maybe to here-ish. Okay, here we go. Cutting, scary, but it's gonna be fine. Really. Yeah, okay. Bye-bye. I measured 1 1/4 inches away from each cut. Then I used my French curve to create the scooped neckline. First try was the charm on this one, so I went ahead and hemmed it up. Okay, I finished sewing on the arm side reinforcement last night. So here it is. This is the inside. Here's the gusset. Let's see. Let's take a look at what it looks like on the outside. So there you go. You can kind of see the stitching, but it doesn't look too bad. It's a little bubbly towards the bottom here. The other side looks a little bit better. Okay, so now all that is left to be done is the neckline. I have already done the medieval one, where I just cut the hole and stuck my head in. We're going to do this one a little bit more scientifically. So what we're going to do is take a sheet of paper, which I've already found the center of. I'm just going to make sure that my centers are marked here, okay? She recommends 3 to 4 inches, so I'm going to start with 3 inches. I may have to go smaller than that. Center to my shoulder seam is 8.5. So -3 would be 5.5. 5.5 is right here. Now I needed to draw the neckline template on my sheet of paper. Using the 5.5 inches I got from my questionable math, I drew 2 straight lines down the side of the paper. Okay, and so I have already measured from my shoulder down to where I think I want it, which is about 7 inches. Okay. What we're gonna do here is cut out this piece. And what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna fold it outside like this. We're gonna make a little curve in it because we don't want it like perfectly weirdly square, right? So I don't know if this is exactly how she did it, but this is how my brain is wrapping around it, so that's how we're gonna do it today. I cut out the template front, and then it was time to do the same for the back. I taped the front template to another sheet of paper, marking the centers. The back won't scoop as low as the front. I decided to go with the tutorial's very methodical method of measuring for the back. She did her length of her finger. So I'm gonna go with that. What is that? 2 inches? 2.5 inches. 2.5 inches to the dot. Look at that. I marked the edge of the neckline and then drew another line on my 2.5 inch mark. Then I did the same thing as I did to the front, rounding out the corner so it didn't look funky. Then I took the template and drew out the shape I wanted to cut for my neckline. Then I flipped it around and did the same on the back. I'm just gonna cut. Okay, I'm gonna cut down a couple of inches. Like the smock, I wanted to cut conservatively, so I cut out a little bit and tried it on. So my line is at about here. And I'm thinking that's gonna be good because obviously when I'm wearing stays, my shape is going to be completely different than just wearing like normal everyday clothes. I don't wanna go lower than that because I'm afraid it's not gonna be supportive enough. In the back, I'm already thinking, so my line is like right here, and I'm already thinking that's probably going to be too high, but I'm going to go ahead and cut where I said I was going to cut, and then I'm going to put it on with my stays and see how it goes from there, and then I will check back with y'all when I've made a decision. Okay, so I just wore this pretty much all afternoon with my stays on, and I think that I cut it just a little too short here on the shoulders because it is falling off. I kind of thought that when I was cutting it. I was thinking, oh, do I really want to cut that? And then I did it anyway. But I definitely think I do not want to take this down anymore, and including the back. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn over and hem the edges and then finish the little shoulder flaps. And that's it. After that, we're done. I'm super excited. And also, I did bring Marie out. I have to bring her out because in a few days I'm doing a shoot with her. And I thought, well, let's check the stays against, not the stays. Let's check the shift against the actual dress and make sure that it didn't pop out. This chemise is not necessarily for this, but since it's kind of the same era style, even though that is not historically accurate at all, I figured it was better than nothing. So it looked pretty good, and I can't get the actual gown onto Gertie because Gertie is falling apart, so that's why it looks so goofy. But in any case, I'm ready, guys. I'm ready to get this done. there you have it. An early 15th century smock for an as yet unmentioned fabulous Halloween costume, and a late 18th century chemise for an as yet unmentioned fabulous mashup. What did I learn from this process? Well, 1, triple check your math, quadruple check it, then check it again. 2, buy extra fabric, just do it. 3, pulling threads is necessary and entirely unpleasant. 4, the experts are experts for a reason. Do what they say, and you won't waste a week of your life playing Tetris with tiny pieces of paper only to go back to the original layout that they did in the first place. 5, if something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. Stop, figure it out, and save yourself the agony. For all the mistakes, I'm so glad that I tackled 2 shifts at once. First of all, because I saved money, and secondly, being able to do 2 in a row on my very first try meant that I was able to learn from my mistakes and modify it immediately. Doing it twice really set the process into my brain. It also allowed me to experiment with techniques and figure out what I liked better. Mostly, I think the Burnley and Trowbridge method was better. It required a little bit more work, obviously with the arm size and the shoulder reinforcements, but I think that in the long run, it's going to be sturdier. However, I really, really hated the math method to do the neckline. That confused me so much, and I would have had such an easier time if I had just done what I did with the smock and cut a little hole and then drew it, and then I wouldn't have like over calculated and confused the heck out of myself. So I will be using both of these techniques in the future in some ways. Even with my non-historically accurate Marie Antoinette costume, I was much more comfortable with the chemise on than I had been without it. In fact, these things are super comfortable in general, and I may or may not wear them around the house because they're comfy. They're definitely worth making if you're going to do any kind of historical costuming. Absolutely, absolutely important if you're going to be wearing a pair of stays or bodies or a corset. If you are hesitant to hand sew a project like this, if you're intimidated by it, know that these shifts were a complete joy to make. I was really overwhelmed by the concept of completely hand stitching a garment. To me, it was going to take ages, and I am a very impatient person. And yet, it went up pretty quickly. It took me maybe 2 weeks from start to finish, and that's only with me sewing maybe an hour a night 3 or 4 times a week. Although the linen did dry my hand out a little, it and the linen thread were tactically delicious. They were so nice to work with. They felt so good in my hands. My advice for all of you who are hesitating, don't be intimidated. Go for it. You will feel so accomplished after you've finished, and really it didn't take me that long. Now I feel like I can tackle a whole gown, a whole robe à la française hand-stitched, which is probably, well, it might happen. We'll see. I am so excited to be done with these. They were so much fun to do, and they're super comfortable to wear. And now that I'm finished with them, I can get started on the rest of my costumes.
Stop! I'm with the project police, and until you finish that whole pile over there, you're not starting any new projects. Come with me.
But I'm running out of time!
No!
But the pile is almost finished!
No, it's not!
Oh, come on, please!
No!
That's about it for me, guys. If you like this video, make sure to hit the thumbs up button. If you want to continue to support me, make sure you subscribe, and I'll see y'all later. It's okay. I'm okay.
You look like an evil witch.
Wait.
Can I write upside down? The answer to that is no. I can't write upside down. What is that? Turn around! What do you have in your hands? Turn around. Every now and then I get a little bit lonely and I don't know the rest of the words. they said. It'll make your life easier, they said. Will it?